So let's continue with introduction to the diatonic button accordion, C-sharp D, Irish style, and after some explanations you're ready to take up the instrument and walk or play. So sit down, find a comfortable position, open your bellows a little bit, find your D, which is your third or your fourth button, on the box, on the press, on the inside row, and we shall try Frère Jacques. This is because I think you have to teach yourself, familiarize yourself with the instrument and the push-pull system and the arrangement of notes by doing a little bit of teaching yourself tunes that you know very well, nursery rhymes, Christmas carols, stuff like that. It's very suitable. So let's start with Frère Jacques, just to give you, not because I want to teach you this tune, but just to give you a few pointers. So here I go. So have a go at that tune and then come back and let's have a look at a few points. Firstly, first question you might ask, do you need to lift your fingers off the buttons every time you play a note? Well, my answer is that you don't. There are some teachers apparently, especially in the English tradition of melodeon or diatonic accordion playing, who think that you should. I would say the following, that you want to get a good attack on each note, that is beyond dispute. Even in a tune like this, which is not a dance tune, we're going to practice getting an attack on each note. So give the bellows a good press. And I would say when you're changing bellows direction, like that, or changing button, there is no need to lift your finger off the button. You should get sufficient attack from the bellows. And I want you to pay attention to how you use your bellows from the word go. It's very easy to get hung up and obsessed with what's happening on your right hand and not pay attention to your left hand. Well, you need the left hand even on Frère Jacques for several things. One is for getting a good attack, as I've just shown you. The other is you need to be paying attention to your air button. In this style of box playing, Irish box playing, we want to keep the bellows generally on a fairly tight rein. At least that may change if you get into using the basses a lot, but in the early stages you won't be doing that. So it's important to be able to play melodies without the bellows extending very far. And that involves constant little adjustments with the air button. And to start with, you can just take breaths or sips of air, as I call them, between notes. You need to get used to doing that. Later on, you will be taking sips of air while you're playing a note. You'll be doing that quite a lot. But for now, just do it between different notes. And you can experiment with taking your fingers off the button if you like. For a tune like this, it's okay. When you get round to playing jigs and reels, you won't have time and you won't want to do that. But I don't mind if you experiment with that now. So what about fingering? What fingers do you use? How many fingers? And how do you get around? I would like you to consider, from the get-go, abandoning any idea of keeping your hand in one place. When you play Irish tunes, you're going to be covering a lot of keyboard, flying around the keyboard. And if you want to sort of find 4 fingers that cover the buttons and not move, I'm afraid it's not going to serve you well. You want to get used to moving your hand around, swapping your fingers, shifting up the keyboard as early as you can. And for that purpose, I'd strongly suggest that you, for the first couple of years, just forget about the fact that you have a little finger, a pinky finger. You would think logically that making use of your pinky finger would be good ergonomics. In fact, on the button box, it's not. You can use it, especially a bit later on, when you've learned to get around the keyboard with 3 fingers. But for now, I strongly suggest that you do that. You learn to get around with 3 fingers, and sometimes even 2. The little finger is weak, and on most of us, it's quite a bit shorter than the other fingers, and it tends to get in the way, and it tends to fumble as well if you're trying to make heavy use of it. So that was a very good piece of advice I got when I was starting out, was to stop using the little finger, which I was trying to use as much as possible, and it made a big difference to my playing. And in case you think piano logic ought to apply, I have a little experiment for you to conduct. Go to your nearest piano and then imagine the piano keys with a line of straight little buttons, straight line of small buttons this size on the big piano keys, just the white keys to start off with. Now try and play the piano with 4 fingers, only touching those imaginary buttons, and I think you'll see why piano logic doesn't apply. Piano keys are long, and a good piano player uses the entire length of the keys to compensate for the different lengths of their digits. So you have 3 fingers. All right? Now, what else? Very important rule. We didn't see any in this particular tune, but in other tunes we might. You can easily, to help you move around, you can swap fingers between notes on one button. Say you're going up the scale. Between the push and the pull, I'm swapping, and that helps me to move around the keyboard. If you were playing a scale of 2 octaves and you didn't do that, now you have a dilemma. What do? Do you keep stabbing up here with your little finger? Do you jump with your 3rd finger? Do you jump with your 1st finger? Well, try and avoid those kinds of situations. Firstly, get rid of your little finger, and secondly, move your hand in small increments. So you can easily swap fingers between notes. You can also swap fingers between repeated notes, the same note. If you were playing, I don't know, it's not a very good example, but you can swap on the same button, and you'll see in my videos I do this an awful lot. Say you were playing, that's not a good example either. Anyway, you can. You can swap fingers when you're playing the same note. Okay, so that's 2 important principles. Move your hand, use 3 fingers, shuffle your fingers. I think that's about all I want to say about fingering for the moment, but you can spend a lot of time working out elegant fingerings so that you're swapping, and sometimes though, when you're in the heat of the action, you have to use inelegant fingerings, and it's quite alright to jump a button with 1 finger. The thing to avoid is, if you find yourself playing this kind of thing, reaching for different buttons repeatedly with the same finger, then it's time to go back to the drawing board and work out some good fingerings. But there's no shame in not having the most elegant fingering all the time. Another question that will probably come up a lot is, well, are you allowed to slide between buttons, particularly between the inner row and the outer row? There are teachers who say this should be avoided whenever possible, and there are teachers who say it's fine, and there are even teachers who say please, please use sliding. So I think I fall into the latter bracket, the last bracket. I find it very useful to slide, particularly from the inner row to the outer row. That's the most common slide, but also you could regard jumping buttons as the kind of sliding. It's the kind of thing that all button accordionists do, so don't worry about it. And look in some of my other tutorial videos, you'll see the kind of fingering strategies I use. But always remember, there are no rules. Nobody has written the book on diatonic button accordion playing in this style, or any other style as far as I know. It's all a question of finding out fingering habits that suit you, and suit your hand, and suit your temperament. You can take my advice or ignore it, and you can pick up tips from watching all kinds of people, even players that you don't think are very good, you can learn from. So do that, and remember, keep your bellows on a tight rein, use your air button, move your hand, and good luck.